So got everything pretty well lined up. Got my transmission sitting on a roller cart so that can actually be wheeled forward and backward. Use the engine hoist, got the engine up to the same level. You can see there's a little bit of separation between it, a little bit smaller on the bottom, a little bit bigger on top, so they're not perfectly aligned. Have a balancing bar up on top, so I'm going to use that to go ahead and make sure they're nice and flush, and then just bring them in and torque everything in. Another way that you can do it if you don't have the balancing bar, they're a little bit misaligned, and go ahead and get them to the same height. And this is an external torque 12. All the bolts going around this housing are 12 or 10. There's only two 10s, external torques. They're up on top. So what I've done in the past is just gotten the first couple started on the bottom and then used the bolts to kind of draw everything closer and closer together while slowly lifting or lowering the engine in order to get everything to mate up properly. So one on the bottom here, one on the bottom on the other side. That'll do it, but I'm actually going to use the balancing bar in order to get everything to sit nice and flat. On the other side, see, we went ahead and started it. So this is the passenger side of my car, and that is the starter motor. Second bolt goes in there into the starter motor, and again, it's an external torque 12 that gets in there. Everything back together, the way that it came apart, everything nice and level. Engine supported by the engine hoist, transmissions on a roller cart. It's nice and level, brought together. All the bolts are in. External 12s for most of them. External 10s for the two bolts up on top. On the driver's side of my car, these external 12s on one side. There's a cover plate in there, and that is a 15 millimeter wrench that you need to put on the back side of those nuts in order to tighten those. So that's on the driver's side. 15 millimeter nut, external 12 torque all the way around there. The form that I found actually says that the external 12s are to be torqued to 53 foot-pounds. The external 10s are to be torqued to 32 foot-pounds. Over here, we have our 12s all the way down to there. Next step, we'll get the wiring all hung back in the hangers, running back to the mechatronics, and then we will get the flywheel reattached to the torque converter. Okay, so attaching the flywheel to the torque converter, it's held on by 4 bolts. Those are 17 millimeter hex. That's a 17 millimeter socket. And what you have to do is support the engine and transmission, and you have this little sight area right here. That is on the front side of the transmission. There's the oil filter location right there, which I removed to make sure I didn't damage anything. And you can see the threaded part right in there on the torque converter that we have to get our bolt into. In order to do that, we're going to rotate our engine using the front crank until the hole in the torque converter lines up with the hole in the flywheel, and then we'll be able to thread that through there. There's a total of 4 of these bolts located at 90-degree increments, so all the way around the circle, 90 degrees, 4 total. Those are 17 millimeter hex heads, and in order to turn the crank, that is a 27 millimeter bolt. So, finished tightening the flywheel to torque converter bolts. You can take a look, getting into the engine. Right down here, right behind the oil pan, right where the oil filter normally goes. Again, I have it removed just so I didn't damage anything. There's a little access cover, and that's actually where the bolts tighten the flywheel to the torque converter. Now these locations little holes are basically all filled in by these rubber pieces. So we'll use those and we'll plug those holes back up so no dirt or anything gets inside of it. And those just push in and they have those little bumps on them, lock them in place.